Okay, so I'm Susan Wolfe. I'm a consultant. I've had my business for a little over 10 years. And I do mostly evaluation, but I also do work with coalitions, some strategic planning. I've done grant writing. I've got skills. Oh, and I've done change leadership facilitation and training as well. And that's part of what I'm going to talk about in regard to expanding your skills and expanding your services. I am now going to share my screen as soon as I figure out, good Lord, there's so many little buttons here. Here we go. All right, I'm going to share the right screen. Okay, so can you all see that yet? Matt?
It's
and
I don't see it yet. It's coming. You've started screen sharing, but we don't see it.
Okay, it's doing that thing it's done to me before where it did this. I don't know, this is a Zoom problem or something, because now I've kind of lost Zoom and clock thing showing. And I can't do anything.
Oh, that happens.
So I will be right back. Okay, everybody, I'm going to try to, oh, there we go. Okay, we've got this.
Yeah, you got it. Perfect.
Took a while though. That is so weird. Let me go back in my, okay, so this is about expand your skills and expand your services. And we're going to do this as a conversation because I really would prefer to do this in a way where we kind of just chat. Let me see, I'm trying to see if I can see everybody by enlarging. Aha, I've got it. I can see you all now too. Okay, so let's just chat about this. First of all, I think one of the things to think about is how evaluation skills that you already have are transferable. You know how to do measurement, you know, data collection, data analysis, project planning, project implementation. You've all facilitated focus groups and you do reporting and data visualization. So all of these things, some of these skills, I mean, if you can facilitate a focus group, you can facilitate a group. I mean, that's just a matter of getting everybody to participate, right? Getting up there, having a plan, having a structure, and getting people to participate. So that's facilitation skills beyond just saying, well, I can do focus groups. So one of the things to think about is within these evaluation skills, what do you know how to do that might be able to use for other contexts? Reporting, you know how to write. If you know how to write really well and your reports require little editing, then you may just know how to edit as well. If you know how to write proposals, we all have to write proposals, right? Well, if you get good at that and you're successful with them, then that means you know how to write a grant proposal, which means you know how to read the directions, read between the lines to see what they're looking for in that RFP, and spell it out in a way that somebody wants to buy you, where you can help other people get bought. So there's some money there. So this is the idea here is sometimes we run into lean times or times when we're just bored with doing evaluation. Sometimes don't you want just a little project to do something else just because it's been like logic model after logic model or something. But remember too, if you know how to do these skills, you also know how to share and teach other people how to do them maybe. So if you teach or something else, then think about, is there kind of, one time I got paid to go to a school district. They had some psych interns. Now psych interns, of course, have learned how to do groups and things like that, but they didn't know how to do focus groups. So they paid me, you know, not a huge amount, but it was some extra money here. But they paid me to come and train their psych interns on how to do focus groups so that they could do them because they needed them done across their district. Great. That was a good opportunity to share my skills. I taught a community group how to do qualitative data analysis, broke it down into a very simple, broke it down into a bunch of exercises where they gave them some data that I made up. and had them, do the qualitative analysis as part of this workshop. But see, you know how to do things that someone may be able to actually use. And in that case, you can also share those skills. Any other thoughts about how you might share your evaluation skills in a different way than just doing evaluation? Or how you can use them differently?
I mean, I could make a pretty good case that more than half of our work is really not program evaluation at all. It's really, it's really only evaluation when we get to around the creation of evaluation questions and then answering those questions. But a lot of the work is just data collection, data storage, and data communication. And a lot of the work that people ask us to do has nothing to do with evaluation. So in so much as it's about reporting and thinking about how to collect and manage data.
Yeah.
I think we can make the argument that evaluation oftentimes is an organizational intervention. So we need to think about that. And I use it with the nonprofit, the board that I sit on all the time, all of these skills.
Yeah, these are skills that are transferable to other situations. Be creative and think about how that can transfer into products you can do, trainings you can offer, other services you could market. So moving forward with this thought, what subject expertise do you have? Sometimes people are looking for subject matter experts, and you never know, what topics have you worked on extensively? What is your degree in? How can you because mine is in community psychology. So I've become a subject expertise with Ann Price on community collaboratives and working in communities, because that was a huge portion of our training, is the skills that you need to work in communities. I'm also a developmental psychologist with expertise in adolescent development. That's what I did my dissertation on. And I have a cognate in organizational psychology, and which is also helpful at the organization level, but also trained with a colleague of mine on change management facilitation. So I'm a certified change intelligence facilitator. So this is what I mean about subject matter. Who has something that they have subject matter expertise in? Matt?
I don't need to dominate the conversation. Anybody else?
So I'm in adult education, and sometimes I'm tapped to serve on panels or as a subject matter expert in that. I also do work with adults with disabilities. And so sometimes that's an area where people need somebody with a good background. But I just saw a comment come through a moment ago. The question is, how do we communicate all of this to people? I guess the packaging or the branding, if you will, is a little tough sometimes because you tend to see yourself in a certain way. So how do we get that across to potential clients?
Yeah, some of that is making sure it's out on your website. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting yourself into those spaces where you can establish yourself in that way. Offering to teach something somewhere can be helpful. But putting it out there in your LinkedIn profiles or your websites or things like that can be helpful. I finally got the chat open here too. Survey development, someone mentioned, is a really transferable skill set. People are always wanting to do surveys. Biggest struggle is communicating, marketing, and showcasing. That is hard. I'm not a comfortable marketer. I have a way of doing it. Anne always laughs at me that I have a way of getting myself into spaces by just chatting people up. and just throwing it into conversation casually sometimes. Oh yeah, I know how to do that. Or, oh, when I was working on blah, blah, I did blah, blah. So Anne laughs at me because she sees me do it. And she's like, you know, sometimes I have to watch her because I'm afraid she's going to totally bust out. Because I know she knows that I'm just bringing this stuff into conversations to sort of let people know, yeah, I can do that. But, you know, just drop it in there somehow casually without being too pushy or too obvious, and except for those people that know you.
You know what, Susan, I gotta, you know, you're never pushy about it. It comes across so naturally, right? So guys, you gotta see Susan in action if we ever are together again for AEA, because you should just like come stand next to her when she is meeting someone, because she always finds a connection. It's not pretentious. It's not salesy. It comes across very naturally, actually. And that's why I giggle, because I'm like completely jealous of that skill that you have.
But yeah, it's look for that connection. And then once you start chatting within that connection, you know, you may find that mutual need or that opportunity. But it really is about just listening to people. And when something buzzes like, hey, you've done that before, or, oh yeah, you know, working into conversations, because that's how, I don't know how much of my work is I get because people call me because of word of mouth now. And you know, I don't have to do a lot of proposals or anything anymore. This week has been interesting, very interesting in itself. Upwork is a great spot for side hustles that utilize some of those skills. That's great, Megan. Thanks for that tip. I've never even looked there. Focusing on the problems you're solving is helpful in terms of marketing. Groups often don't know they want a focus group facilitator. It's surprising how people will, somebody came to me with a problem that they somehow figured I could maybe solve this. And it was a political problem. How we've got this new person, they want to go in this direction. How do we need more data here. How do we present this? So I flat out said, look, we're coming out of COVID. This is the time when you can present it not as you're going in the wrong direction. We want to get these data in a way to show you, but we're coming out of COVID. We need to do a mini needs assessment now to see how COVID affected our larger needs assessment that we did 2 years ago. She's like, oh my God. So it's just constantly thinking about, number one, how you can work with people in a way that people aren't being challenged or upstaged or anything, but it's always minding the politics and stuff. That's another thing is sometimes it's just a matter of you. One of my skills is now all right, I'm going to be honest. I've navigated a whole lot of shit storms and learned a lot from that. And so I've learned how to navigate some pretty tricky situations from that. I don't know how else to put that. Sometimes I worry about listing too many services on the website or other marketing. Don't want to overwhelm or confuse. That's a really good point. But you can list your services in buckets, large buckets, and then figure out where some of these more detailed things can fit into those large buckets to show I can do community collaborative building. And within that, I can do evaluation. I can help do facilitation. So think about the big buckets of what you do and how you can sort of work this in. So somebody could read between the lines and see, you know what, this person could do that. And that way you don't look like you're doing 20,000 different things, like, who is this person, right? So you don't want to come across as someone who's in 80 different directions. So it's a matter of bucketing them and then describing that bucket in a way that showcases those little things. Credentialed project management professional. There you go. There's someone that got some good skills. That's one you can always market. Often my clients will solicit my expertise about managing their project. That's another thing I'm going to get to. In fact, next question. What professional skills do you have? What do you know to do other than evaluation? Project management. We all know that. Sometimes getting that certification is a good way to really show that. And sometimes we just have to bite it and get those credentials. Collaborate with Grant Professionals Association and present to them. If you become a GPCI certified, you can develop paid workshops and use it as an opportunity to meet grant writers who will put you on their projects. That is like so cool, Matt. Okay, you guys, please talk. Don't just type in the thing. Talk to me a little bit because I feel like.
So that's something I pursued, and I don't have the time to pursue anymore because we've got other things going on. But I'm throwing that out there, that reach out to your local grant professionals association. So GPA is a national association with chapters. They're not like AEA where we have affiliates. They're separate. Their chapters are directly connected to the mothership organization, and they're always looking for people to present. And I mean, they reached out to me and the Evaluation Association of St. Louis. We presented like it was a random 4-hour workshop. A bunch of people put together different sessions on evaluation. They went nuts for it. And then they asked us to present at the national conference, which we did. And then we ended up doing a pre-conference workshop the following year. And COVID and work and everything got in the way. But the reality is we did a really lousy job. That pre-conference workshop was not a great session. I didn't think it went over well, but people lapped it up. And I thought, well, there is an extremely high need for evaluation sessions, both at the GPA conference, but also I'm sure at every one of those local chapters. If you become GPCI certified, so they have an accreditation process. If you get accredited with GPC, I'm not sure what that stands for, professional certification, grant professional certification. But to do that, you need to take so many courses that each have credits, but you can offer these courses, you can ask for pay for it, and people will gladly do it. And I think if you're certified, I mean, look into it, but I just start by reaching out to your local chapter and getting connected there. It's a great networking opportunity, and you can meet those grant writers that are oftentimes looking for evaluators to do work for them and to be put in on their projects and help them write evaluation sections, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I was going to add, guys, that Jen Valentine and James Pan are 2 evaluators I know who use that business strategy of teaming up with grant writers. James was just on a grant writers podcast. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but I caught it the other day, and I know he just presented at the national conference. And
Jen presented on this topic here. I forgot about that. That was back in September, October. She presented on partnering with grant.
And I saw in the IC newsletter they linked to that session, Matt, the one that came out this morning. And the other thing that comes to mind is I know there's facilitation a certification rather in facilitation, right? You can be like a certified presenter or something, facilitator kind of thing. I've looked in it. I didn't go down that road for the same reason you didn't, Matt, is because I have too much evaluation going on. I couldn't devote that time. So I think those are all great ideas.
So yes, I'm certified as the facilitator because that's actually like one of my top services. And so I would just offer that most of the work that I get is not not looking for quote unquote an evaluator. So to the extent that you don't necessarily, I mean, maybe you want to be an evaluator, that's fine. But I just found that like there were certain skills within evaluation that I really like doing. And so I focus more on those skills than marketing myself as a quote unquote evaluator.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. And don't forget too, if people are writing big federal grants or even big foundation grants, there's always that needs statement. And people really don't know how to dig through data well. And you have that skill. You know how to dig through data and use it to make a case. So that's another area where you can prove yourself helpful, is being able to pull together the statistics at the front of the grant. Because I'll tell you, I do grant reviews, and there's another one. If you want to earn a little extra money, it pays, I don't know, $1,000 a shot to $1,200 a shot is what I've made. Not a lot for the time, but at the same point, one way to hone your grant skills and really tune into how that review process works is sign up to be a grant reviewer. With a lot of the HHS agencies, Department of Education, different agencies all need grant reviewers. And so being a grant reviewer is a great way to hone those skills if you're really wanting to work on federal grants. So professional skills is helpful. Another thing to ask yourself is, what other types of work interest you? What sounds like it would be fun? Look around at related types of things, because you don't want to go like, I'm an evaluator or a dog behavior expert. That might be a little bit too far apart. But what are, like I say, I do the evaluation, but Anna and I both do some collaborative or coalition development as well. So that's a little bit different. We do needs assessments. That's a little bit different. It's an evaluation thing, but it's a little. So think about what other things you can do. Even the change management facilitation and strategic planning. Strategic planning requires facilitation. It requires understanding how to facilitate a SWOT analysis. And then it's kind of like, when you think about it, it's kind of like almost looking at an organization's theory of change. Because to develop their strategic plan is kind of the same thing. They're looking at an organizational theory of change, how they want to get to a certain place, what are they going to do? And then you can help them in the middle of that think about the paths of how they expect what they're planning to do to lead to. So this is really evaluative. And then because you know how to do an evaluation plan well, you can help them lay out a chart to operationalize their strategic plan. Too often strategic plans are done with organizations, and then they're left with this beautiful little book with a graphic, but there's no plan, no implementation plan. And maybe you can even get hired on to help them with that implementation, because you know how to manage a project, right? So strategic planning is really just working through a theory of change, if it's done well, because really it's about them having their vision, where are we going to go, how are we going to get there, and how's that going to unfold. Bam. It's not, the management people and stuff would like you to think that it's some kind of specialized thing that, they know because they're management and blah, blah, blah. But no, I just use theory of change. And I've had organizations actually get excited over their strategic plan that I helped them develop, because they felt like it was something they could put in place and make things happen with. I'm giving away all my secrets here. Facilitator's Guide to Participatory Decision Making. Oh, that's great. Liberating Structures is a great set of, I need to learn more on those. In the middle of a strategic planning implementation right now with Anne. That's right. But those are, again, there's a lot of skills we have that we can easily reframe into something that, especially with nonprofit organizations and stuff, stuff like that. So think about what type of work, when you think about other things that you've thought about doing but aren't there yet. Anybody have ideas for what they would like to do outside of the evaluation?
Get paid for sitting on the beach.
Oh yeah, that's my real skill that I want. I've been paid for some really weird stuff. One job I had was looking at federal policy, looking at how it was, or rather looking at federal laws and regulations, looking at how they had been operationalized into internal policy in the agency, and then looking at how they had, how they were really happening in practice, and finding whether there was a consistent line between federal law, this federal agencies doing it, or putting it on paper. So basically what I was doing is finding those inconsistencies. And it's because I used to work for the Inspector General's office. This agency called me in because they wanted me to set them up. So if the Inspector General's office came in, they would fly through any inspection because they were consistent with the law and they were doing it in practice. So it was just a matter of using my skills to look at the law and look at their policy and see, were they consistent? Did they say the same thing? And I had that training and experience from being a Fed. And then going around and looking at documents. And I mean, don't we do this in evaluation? We look at documents, we do key informant interviews to ask people, how's this really happened? We wander around and observe a little bit. Bam, there you go. So I did that for probably 2 years off and on. They would come up and say, and I'll tell you, you haven't lived till you've read the entire Federal Purchasing Manual, Federal Acquisition Regulations Manual. It was just mind numbing. Policy review, literature review, document analysis. We have that skill set. We know how to do that.
We do. And Susan, didn't you do an odd presentation for a group of realtors recently?
I did. This was so cool because I'm a community psychologist. So I did a series of group presentations on, it was to home builders and those guys that build these neighborhoods. And it was about sense of community. And how do you design a neighborhood that promotes sense of community? And I gave them the first heads up was, if you get introverts in your neighborhood, Wine Wednesday isn't going to work. So how they could build in natural ways for people to interact instead of these contrived, well, we built a clubhouse and everybody's around the clubhouse. And so we talked about the physical features that would facilitate. So that was a really fun way for me to use my community psychology and my knowledge of sense of community to translate it into how it would work for a built environment. So that when they think about redesigning subdivisions, they think about how to redesign them in a way that would work with real people's lives. So, I mean, what kind of neighborhood is it where everybody goes into their garage, shuts the door, hangs out in their fenced in backyard, and then goes to Wine Wednesday once a week? You know, how much are you really living, or how much community is built that way?
It depends what kind of wine they had. I'm just teasing.
Yeah, that was on my mind too, but it's like, yeah, you can continue that just so, but don't make me go there and socialize. I'll just go and grab the wine and go home. Thank you.
Unless it's boxed wine, then I ain't coming.
Some of them are good.
Mm-mm.
Some of them are good after the first glass. Oh, we lost one person. Okay. I'm just trying to monitor the chat a little Wednesday. But it was interesting to be able to do that, to be able to translate my knowledge of sense of community into built environment. But again, that included some of it doing some research, being able to research literature and pull that together as well. It's not like I just walk around with all this stuff in my head all the time. But I had good research, good literature to draw from. So the next set of questions, though, is if you want to do some new things, what are some things you might need to learn? Who's done some interesting workshops or certifications? I was
Have any interesting workshops or certifications, but something that's been really helpful in expanding skill sets is partnering with another consultant who has the more experience in the area I'm interested in.
Yep.
That has been really helpful for me in kind of developing more skills that I didn't necessarily have a lot of hands-on experience myself.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, especially if you're jumping into new water. Partnering with someone who's really good at it is a great way to get started. With the organizational change stuff, I subcontracted with my friend Barbara and did some trainings with her early on. This was like way back when my business was first opening. So that was, and of course, she's the person that wrote the book on change intelligence. So that was helpful. But that's helpful also to understand change, because we work, when you evaluate, really sometimes it involves making recommendations for change. And if you know how to do that, that's helpful. I'm trying to think of what other skills there are lots of certifications. Watch out for free opportunities. I got certification and I'm a health equity ambassador for the American Psychological Association. They paid for me to go. This was a few years back, but they paid for me to go to New Orleans for a few days and get all this training to do this. I mean,
Susan is the queen of getting people to pay for her to go to cool places, by the way.
It was fun. I met some interesting people and it was a lot of fun.
We could have an entire IC Topic chat session on Susan's travels that's paid for by somebody else. So that's no joke. Because every time I get together with her, she says, then they paid me to go to this other place. They paid me to go to this other place. And then you look at her CV, which is about 75 pages long. I think that's not an exaggeration.
No,
and it's only 40 pages long. And it's a lot of interesting places she's been. So we all want to be reborn as Susan someday.
I got to go to Cairo, Egypt one time, paid for, with stops in Italy and France, layovers. But yeah, so but really looking for opportunities for training, and sometimes they're free. Sure, I volunteer now and then, I've had to do some volunteering for APA's health equity. I've probably over the years put in maybe 20 hours over, 7 or 8 years. So it hasn't been a huge burden, but then I constantly get an influx also of new information that keeps me understanding, gives me a lot of good grounding in health equity. Opportunities for free webinars they do. But again, having these kind of certifications and stuff and doing these kind of things, that's how you fill a CV, but it's also a good way to show expertise. It's like you have all these different lines that when you're going to go after this job, you pull these things out and put them, oh yeah, this is a health equity project. I can use this expertise I gained. So chambers of commerce have leadership development type trainings. You can either be a trainer or go get the training. Once you get the training, then start working toward being the trainer. Any other things that you think would be interesting to learn? Unmute, talk. Oh, partnering with network analysis folks to get on hands-on experience. That's really good. Certified in change management. IPRACI is one organization to go through. Yeah, I went through Change Catalyst for the change intelligence model. of change facilitation. But it's a longtime colleague of mine that developed it over many years with good empirical research behind it. But private question about accessing the YouTube video library. There you go.
Sorry, that wasn't about this. That was a side comment. Somebody had asked me about accessing all the YouTube videos for the IC topic chat. So I was posting that to everyone so they could access them. Sorry about that.
No, that's great. IC topic YouTube videos. Any other thoughts about this? Because, you know, we still have some time. We have 20 more minutes. What ideas? Has anybody gotten some ideas from this, thinking about it, or what kind of ideas are you having, or thoughts?
Yeah, you know, like I said, I've thought about doing the facilitator certification, so maybe I'll be curious about that. Maybe I'll just go wander over there and think about that, because I bet we're all guilty of this. We're probably all perpetual learners. There's always something new to learn, so that might be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or Amy, was it totally miserable? You tell me, since you've done it.
So I actually had it as part of my former life before I was a consultant. The organization that I was part of paid for a small group of us to go through it. And at the time I was like, when am I ever going to use this? And now it's like my main service line. So I actually thought it was really, really helpful. But I really like group dynamics, thinking about how to make meetings a success and not miserable and all of that type of stuff. So for me, I liked it. Some of the colleagues that took it with me who are like, get me out of here, like I would rather just like sit and analyze data, did not like it. So I think it is probably a little bit dependent on your interests and what types of things you gravitate towards.
Mm-hmm.
I think too, with what you need to learn to do it, something that it could be helpful in is thinking about like, if you have reoccurring like sticking points through some of your projects or contracts, like, oh, I always seem to run into problems with, I don't know, this being a part that stresses me out, or something that I really need to work through. That might be a good indicator of some area that you might want to get training in. And I'm having a difficult, like the change management thing is what brought that to mind. Because a lot of people, when we're talking about evaluation or helping people think about how to change organizational practice or something, there's a lot that goes into that besides like, oh, well, I want to change this. And having that change management background kind of helps frame solutions along different points of like a change continuum for organizations. Mm-hmm. So it's more likely that they'll be able to take like the easy things first and then kind of graduate or progress towards the more systemic rather pieces.
Just following Amy's comments here about change management, it was my understanding for how industrial organizational psychology seems to have a lot of overlap with evaluation and the work that my firm does. That's why I reached out to that department for grad assistants. And I'm, the big, master plan is to kind of mature these students into potentially, employees someday. But a lot of the work that happens in IO psychology, I think is just a natural for evaluation. And in many ways, evaluators do a lot of the work that the IO psychology people are teaching about. So another comment, it seems to me like what everybody's identified their niche, and I've spent time talking about niche, but for me, it's about education, but then there's subsectors within education. And as I've gotten to know like the regional superintendents in the state of Illinois, we continue to find new and different things that we have skill set for that's not evaluation. It's I have a project going right now with the Amanda Klein Cox. She's a subcontractor for me, and she's working with our regional office. And it's really about logic model development, which is be a piece of evaluation, but it's really not meant as evaluation, and thinking through new and different ways to present their data. So I think there's a lot of different ways to define that. It's a bit of an evaluability assessment, things like that, but it's going to turn into, I think, a survey development process for the entire association, which is about 40 organizations. So there's just ways. I mean, I think the encouragement that I would give, and what I'm hearing from Susan and all of this, is think about what your skill set is and how you can better serve your clients beyond the initial evaluation, or perhaps you never even do evaluation with your clients. And I think in many ways I don't all the time.
Someone mentioned an interesting climate change adaptation. The Blue Marble people, I think, are doing some of that. Google Blue Marble, that's Michael Quinn Patton's latest thing, but they do some trainings and thinking, and I think you can probably follow that to some kind of group of people working in that area. Design thinking, yep. Harvard Business Review, they do have some good articles and things. My change management, now I've got a cognate and organizational psych, so I've had a lot of courses and training in that in grad school. The change management my colleague developed has more to do with pulling together your team and where you need to focus in terms of she conceptualizes head, heart, and hands. And that if your team doesn't have somebody with the vision and the economic outlook and all that, the business person, and doesn't have someone tending to the people, and then also you need a project manager. It can be one person that does that, or it can be a team of people that do that. Typically, though, most of us, she has an assessment that you do, and then it lets you see when you're dealing with change, where's most of your focus? Are you strictly a project management person? Are you a person who's all about the people? Because too often when you're working with change projects, especially with nonprofits and stuff, one of the things I found in teaching these workshops is they're all about the heart. They're all about making sure, especially if they do a lot of social work, they always focus on, are there people getting through this change? And they forget about that you have to be managing the project, and somebody has to keep pushing that vision out there. You have to have that, in the business part. And so just being able to recognize the dynamics and the needs to move that forward in terms of the types of team members and all the focal areas. I turned out to be an adapter, of course. I'm focusing on all three. Who knew? Which can be a good thing, but it can be a problem too. Yeah, the head, heart, hands is a facilitation to design gatherings. That's interesting because it's also part of the change intelligence model. But it's kind of fun to work with people so that they understand how to set up a team to work toward change. Other things you might want to learn. Content, of course, it's always, sometimes that means getting on a team, working with someone, even as a junior member. You might have to bite it, do some data analysis, do some whatever. Sometimes you have to back up to move forward. So even if you're super senior in your career like me, I'm like, super senior at this point, I guess. That explains the 40 some pages. But even as a super senior, I'm still constantly, I just finished taking Stellar Slides courses and design courses by Ann Emery. Even 35 plus years in to this career, I'm constantly, I took R classes, took trauma-informed evaluation courses, constantly keeping those skills upgraded. I think that is the most important thing. Not only the evaluation skills, but also looking for those peripheral expertise areas and stuff that maybe can get me on a project. So if there's a certification or a training, and it's affordable, interesting, and relevant, do some grant reviews, earn that extra money and do it. That's where I get all that money from to do these things.
He only takes projects that puts her in new and interesting places. Another thought, Susan, you brought up Anne Emery. We have an interesting model in both Anne Emery and Stephanie Evergreen that they've created these workshops that they do, so I would encourage people to think of what other people want to learn from you, particularly the evaluators, because there's plenty of topics out there. There are, and you can create sessions that you can present online. People will pay for them. It's crazy. The best model I can point to is my coworker Tom Withy, who started presenting on Excel dashboarding. It's actually a session that I attended at the Atlanta Institute a couple years ago, and I shared it with him, and he took it on and then really started developing it, and then he started presenting on it because he learned new and different things. And now, I mean, it looks like they're getting booked up monthly for like these workshops, and we're going to internally create our own educational network, our own educational sessions just through the Goshen company. And it was random, really. I said, go present on this and see if you can present on something like this at AEA, and it just took off. So I would encourage people to think about what are those things, what are those skill sets that other people want to learn from me, and find ways to present about that to others. And you can create paid for pay workshops that that affects the bottom line.
Yeah, those kind of
things. Lisa, are you going to present it with Shelley and Tom? Oh, good. Yeah, Shelley's Tom's collaborator. They work together on this, so that's awesome.
No, I'm not presenting. I'm just attending.
No, I know. I
Okay.
think it's fantastic that you're going to be there, Lisa. That's what I was saying. No, so there's an example. So Lisa's signed up to be a part of their session, and I guarantee you, Lisa, I've been through it a couple of times. It'll be well worth your money. I know you paid for it, and it's fantastic. You're going to take these skills and you're going to put them directly into your work. You'll love it.
Well, and Shelley presented, like I said, at my local evaluators group, and I've already started designing and have had a lot of positive feedback from partners. And so I want to kind of expand upon the skills. And so I'm really excited. It's a really intuitive way to develop a dashboard. So I highly recommend, their sessions on interactive dashboards.
I'm gonna look at that one soon.
You should. I have a conflict of interest there because his revenue comes back to my business, so I'm not going to push it too hard. But my point in all of that was my point in all of that is it was just something random that I said, Tom, you're really great at this. Why don't you do some more of that? And then we met Shelley at the AEA conference when we were there in Minneapolis, and they started partnering and they put together a proposal for the Summer Institute. Well, we know how that went last in 2020, but then they said, well, we'll do something else. And then it just kind of took off. So we're going to fully develop that as a whole kind of like side hustle within Goshen of creating our own educational center. Yeah, absolutely. I can't think of it. Tessie Katsambas, her group created their own educational center doing the same thing. She's started as a 2-person operation 20 years ago, and I think they have 100 people working at her organization now, but they created their own educational center. So we're going to follow that model and just kind of see where it goes. So
there's a lot of potential out there. You can always write a book, huh, Anne?
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story. We won't go there. But it may be out next year. We think we're there.
We'll see. Yeah, here tell you don't make a lot of money off books, but
no, I have one book I co-edited, and no, the royalties, they're not huge, and it's a textbook used in my field quite for graduate courses, but the royalties aren't huge. So don't think, other than being able to say you're the person who edited or wrote this book, which of course is again another marketing thing when you've written the book on something, or edited the new directions for evaluation on it.
Yeah, you don't get paid at all for creating an
No.
edited session,
No,
an edited journal, a guest editor. The editor gets paid. I have a quick aside. This has nothing to do with your session today, but I've been meaning to tell everybody this today, that I serve on the financial advisory board. We were going through the budget, which isn't public yet, but I did ask about one way to encourage participation with AEA for the independent consultants is to create an insurance, for them to negotiate an insurance program for us, which is, if you go back through the archives of questions of why doesn't AEA have an insurance opportunity for independent consultants to get a professional liability, it goes way back, like years and years.
yeah.
Okay, so the story is, this comes straight from Anisha, and I told her I was going to tell you guys they're planning to do that. I know, look at Amy's face, look at that. I told you, look at that, see? So they apparently they did a small survey that I wasn't aware of, and about interest, and so they are in the process of negotiating with an insurance company right now who could offer professional liability for AAA members, and I am loving that.
That'd be great, because I have to go,
So,
I'm going through APA right now to get mine.
and I'm going through AERA, and I mean, honestly, I don't do that much with the American Educational Research Association. I probably should do more, but I'm only a member because I want to maintain my insurance program.
Hey, thanks for that, Matt.
Yep,
Yes.
absolutely. So I told him that it's a way to maintain your membership, because I think the independent consultants come and go as they, for various reasons. But if you have to be a member to get access to the insurance, then I think you're going to ensure membership. So.
Yeah, I stayed with APA for that reason, even though I don't always agree with a lot of what they do. So yeah. Any other questions or thoughts, since we're nearing the end of this, about how you can expand your skills to expand your business?
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording right here.